Welcome, Nightlings. This is Huxley. Do me a big favor and drop a comment below to help encourage the algorithm to show this episode to more people like you. It could be where you're listening from, the time there, your favorite story in history, anything. I read every note. Tonight, you write the last words anyone will ever hear from you, and you write them in pencil, because the ink has frozen solid. Your hand is moving across the page. The cold has its own opinion about whether it lets you finish the sentence. You don't know yet which of you wins. There is a sound the wind makes when it has been blowing for 9 straight days, and you know it now better than you know your own heartbeat. It is not a howl. A howl would suggest something alive, something that might tire. This is flatter than that. A steady grinding pressure against the canvas a few inches from your face, rising and falling but never stopping, like the whole sky has leaned its shoulder against your little tent and decided to stay. You are lying on your back. Above you, the green windproof cloth shivers and snaps, taut as a drumhead, white with frost on the inside where your breath has frozen to it. When you exhale, you can see it. A small pale cloud that hangs for a moment, and then crystallizes and drifts down, very gently, onto your sleeping bag. It is, you think, almost beautiful. You are too tired to follow the thought any further than that. There are 2 men beside you. Wilson on your left, Bowers on your right. You can hear them breathing, slow and even and shallow. The breath of men conserving everything they have left. You do not need to look to know them. You have shared this tent, this ration, this exact cold for months. Bill Wilson, who is the steadiest soul you have ever met. Birdie Bowers, who has never once, in your hearing, admitted to being cold. They are quiet now. Everyone is quiet now. The depot is 11 miles north. 11. You turn the number over in the dark the way you'd turn a stone in your pocket. Food is there. Fuel is there. 11 miles of flat white barrier. No glacier to climb. No mountains, nothing but level snow between you and everything you need to live. On a good day, in another life, 11 miles was a morning's walk. You have been ready to go for days. Your gear is packed. You and your 2 companions have lain here, harnesses ready, waiting for the drift outside the door to thin enough to let you out. It has not thinned. Now, here is the thing you do not let yourself think about too directly: your right foot. Some days ago, you still had, by your own private estimate, the best feet in the party. You were rather proud of them. But the cold finds the far edges of a man first. The toes, the fingers, the nose, the ears. The body, when it is frightened, pulls its warmth inward to guard the heart, and it spends the toes like loose change to do it. And so your right foot has gone past pain now. Pain you could argue with. This is different. This is a thick, waxy numbness, a sense that the foot belongs to someone else, and has been left behind somewhere down the trail. You do not look at it. There is no reason to look at it. You know what you would see, and looking will not melt the drift outside the door. So instead, you write. You have a small notebook. You have had it the whole way. The whole impossible way. and you have kept it the way some men keep a prayer, because it is the one thing out here you can still control. You cannot control the wind, you cannot control the 11 miles, but you can put the pencil to the page and you can tell the truth about what is happening plainly in your own hand, and that, somehow, is enough to go on with. The ink froze long ago, so pencil. You hold it in fingers that are clumsy and slow, and you write about the storm. You write about the men beside you, how unendingly cheerful they are, how they speak of getting through even when you suspect none of you truly believes it anymore. You write about the people at home. You always come back, in the end, to the people at home. And here is the strange part. The part you would not have believed a year ago. The cold has stopped feeling like an enemy. For weeks it was a thing to be fought, hour by brutal hour. But somewhere in the last day or two, lying still, the fight has gone out of it. There is a warmth creeping up through you now, slow and almost kind. A loosening, a heaviness in the limbs like the first sweet minute of sinking into a deep feather bed after a very long journey. Your eyes want to close. The grinding of the wind seems farther away than it was. It would be so easy, so unbelievably easy, to set the pencil down and let yourself be carried off on that warmth, towards something that feels, more than anything else, like sleep. But you have a sentence to finish first. You bring the pencil back to the page. You begin to form a word. The graphite catches on the rough paper, and your hand moves slower, and at the edge of that word it begins to. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before the tent, before the 11 miles, before the longest walk of your life, and the white silence, and the warmth that feels like sleep. Before any of it, your story starts in a brewer's house in Devon, on a soft green coast at the very edge of England, with a small, dreamy boy who, of all things, gets seasick. So set the pencil down for now. We will come back to it. I promise you that. We will come back. If these stories speak to you, if you find comfort in the lessons found in the quiet corners of history, tap the follow button to join our circle of dreamers, and let the next story find you when you need it most. Welcome, Nightlings. This is Huxley. If you like listening or falling asleep to real stories that will reveal life's deeper truths, then this is the place for you. Consider subscribing, and let the next story find you when you need it most. We are close towards a milestone for this little channel. 500 followers. It is not much, I know, but it is progress, and I cannot get there without your help. So, if you have thoroughly enjoyed one of my episodes, share it with a friend who needs it. Follow if you have not. It matters more than it should. Thank you. So settle in. Get warm. And let's begin all the way back at the beginning with a boy named Con. You are born on the 6th of June 1868 in a house called Outlands on the edge of Devonport, where the green of Devon runs right down to the grey of the sea. You are the third of 6 children, and the elder of the 2 boys, which means a certain weight settles on you early. The quiet weight of being the son people will look to. Your family calls you Con. Not Robert, not Falcon. Those grand names that sound, even now, like they were chosen for a portrait. Just Con. A small name for a small, soft-spoken boy. And you are soft-spoken. By every account that survives, you are a dreamy, delicate, inward sort of child. The kind who can be sitting right there at the table, spoon in hand, and yet be somewhere else entirely, off behind your own eyes, so lost in thought that someone has to say your name twice. It's a quality that never quite leaves you. Even as a grown man, people will notice the way you can forget the time, forget the room, forget the conversation, and drift off into your own head, as if the world had politely excused itself. Your father is John, a brewer and a magistrate, a respectable man of a respectable trade. The Scotts are a naval family at heart. Your grandfather served, and 4 of your uncles after him. So the sea is woven into the family the way a thread is woven into cloth. But the money, such as it is, doesn't come from the sea. It comes from a small brewery in Plymouth that your father inherited, and from the careful, genteel business of looking comfortable. And that's the thing about Outlands. When you really look at it, it is comfort that has to be maintained. It is the late Victorian middle-class art of keeping up appearances, of the good cloth and the good manners and the sense never spoken aloud, that all of it rests on foundations a little thinner than anyone lets on. You grow up inside that quiet effort, though you're far too young to name it. To you, it is simply home. The Devon light, soft and silver off the water. The smell of the brewery on certain days. And always just past the edge of the garden, just past the edge of everything. The sea. The sea is your destiny, of course. You barely have to be told. For a boy of your class and your family, the Navy isn't a choice so much as a current you were born into. Somewhere out there is a wooden ship and a hard bunk and a life of brass and discipline waiting for you to grow into it. There is, however, one small complication. You get seasick. I want you to sit with that for just a moment, because it really is one of history's gentler jokes. The boy who will one day haul himself across the most violent, frozen ocean of ice on the entire planet. The man whose name will become a byword for endurance at the bottom of the world. Turns a delicate shade of green on a calm afternoon in a sheltered harbour. The water barely moving. The gulls bored overhead. And your stomach traitorously beginning to roll. You're squeamish too. Not the hardy, rough-and-tumble lad the Navy imagines when it pictures its future officers. You feel things. The cold, the queasiness, the small cruelties of the world. You are, in short, an unlikely candidate for absolutely everything that is coming. But you so rarely start out looking the part, do you? Not the hardy, rough-and-tumble lad the Navy pictures. Just the dreamy one. The delicate one. The boy at the table who isn't quite listening. Lost somewhere out past the garden, watching the light move on water he hasn't learned yet to be afraid of. For now, you are simply Con. 8 years old, then 10, then 12. The brewery hums. The appearances hold. The sea waits at the edge of the world with the patience of something that knows it will get its way. And then, when you are 13, the waiting ends. The sea doesn't ask, it decides, and they send you away. You are 13 years old, and you are standing on the deck of a ship that doesn't go anywhere. She is HMS Britannia, an old wooden training hulk moored at Dartmouth, and this is where the Navy takes soft boys and makes officers out of them. The year is 1881. You have been coached for this, polished up at a place called Stubbington House. And now here you are, one small cadet among many, your whole life suddenly reduced to brass buttons and cold water, and a great many older men who are not, on the whole, interested in your feelings. The Britannia is a strange first ship when you think about it. She floats, but she never sails. A boy comes aboard expecting the open sea, and instead finds a kind of floating schoolhouse, all creaking timber and shouted orders and endless examinations. You learn knots and navigation and mathematics. You learn to fold yourself into the iron rules of naval life. And you learn, above all, that no one cares what you feel, only what you can do. For a dreamy boy, this could have broken you. But here's what I find quietly remarkable about you, Con. It doesn't. You pass out of Britannia in July of 1883 as a midshipman, 7th in a class of 26. Now, 7th is an interesting place to finish. It is not first. It is not the dazzling, effortless brilliance the world loves to tell stories about. But it is good. Solidly, respectably good in a hard school that does not hand out kindness. 7th is the mark of a boy who is not a natural, but who works, who grinds, who takes a temperament unsuited to all of this and bends it, by sheer will, into something that functions. And so begins the long climb. It is a slow ladder, the Navy, and you go up it rung by patient rung, sub-lieutenant in 1888, lieutenant in 1889. You specialize, in time, as a torpedo officer, learning the new science of the thing aboard HMS Vernon. There are no fireworks here, no sudden glory. There is just the steady accumulation of a career, the kind of unspectacular competence that builds quietly in the background of a man's 20s while he waits, without quite knowing it, for his life to actually begin. The naval world you move through is all ritual and formality, and some of it, I'll admit, is faintly absurd. The examinations alone, the gravity with which grown men assess whether a young officer can perform some maneuver precisely as the book demands. There is a whole theatre to it, a performance of seriousness, and you learn the steps the way you learn everything else. Carefully, dutifully, with that part of you that is always just slightly observing it all from somewhere behind your own eyes. But then the world you came from begins quietly to come apart. Your father, John, the brewer, the magistrate, the respectable man, has made a mistake. He has sold the brewery, that small, reliable thing the whole family rested on, and he has invested the money. And he has invested it badly. By 1894, he is virtually bankrupt. The comfort of Outlands, the appearances so carefully maintained all through your childhood, simply evaporate. Your father, a man of standing, has to take a salaried job managing another man's brewery. The fall is not loud. There is no scandal, no ruin in the streets. It is quieter and, in its way, harder than that. It is the slow, genteel humiliation of a family that used to be comfortable, learning to be something less. And then it gets worse. In 1897, your father dies. Heart disease. The man whose money failed does not live long past the failing of it. And the very next year, in the autumn of 1898, your younger brother Archie, who had gone into the army, catches typhoid, and Archie dies too. In the space of a few short years, you lose your father, you lose your brother, and you lose the soft green certainty of the world you were born into. What's left, when the dust settles, is you. Your mother is a widow now. Your sisters are unmarried, without a father to provide. And the weight that settled on you so gently as a boy, the weight of being the elder son, the one people look to, comes down now with its full force. You are the sole support of your family. Their security rests on your salary, your career, your steady climb up that slow ladder. Promotion is no longer about ambition or pride. Prize money is no longer an abstraction. These things are now, very simply, how the people you love will eat. Duty, for you, has stopped being a fine word from a copybook. It has hardened into something else. Necessity. The plain, unglamorous fact that other lives are hanging from yours, and you cannot let go. I think it matters, knowing this about you. Because the man the world will remember, the one who marches into the white and does not stop, that endurance doesn't come from nowhere. It is forged right here, in these grey years, in a man learning that you carry the weight because there is no one else to carry it, and you do not get to put it down. So you don't. You go on. You do your duty on ships that come and go. A competent torpedo officer with a careful career and a family leaning on his shoulders, and no particular reason to think his life will ever be anything but this. And then, one ordinary day, on an ordinary street in London, you bump into a man you'd half forgotten. You stop, you shake his hand, and the two of you fall into conversation. It is June of 1899, and you are walking down the Buckingham Palace Road. That's all. That's the whole grand beginning of it. No summons, no destiny announcing itself with trumpets, just a London street, an ordinary errand, and a familiar face coming the other way. The face belongs to Sir Clements Markham. Now, you've met him before. Years ago, when you were a 16-year-old midshipman out in the West Indies, Markham had noticed you. He was a man of the Royal Geographical Society, a great enthusiast for exploration, and he had a habit of quietly marking promising young officers, filing them away in that restless mind of his for some future use. And it seems he filed you away, because here he is all these years later, and the conversation turns, as Markham's conversations always seem to, toward the ends of the earth. He tells you there is to be an expedition, a great British expedition south to Antarctica, the first major venture of its kind in over half a century. and it will need a leader. And here is something I love about you, something you'll write yourself plainly years later. You will admit in your own book that you had, and I'm quoting you here, no predilection for polar exploration. None. You weren't a boy who dreamed of the poles. You weren't haunted by maps of the White South. The ice held no special romance for you at all. And yet, within days, you applied to lead it. Why? Well, you know why, even if you never quite say it out loud. There is a widowed mother. There are unmarried sisters. There is a career that has climbed about as high as a careful torpedo officer's career is likely to climb. And here, suddenly, is a door. A chance at command, at distinction, at the kind of advancement that could change everything for the people leaning on your shoulders. You don't apply because you love the ice. You apply because you are a practical man who has just seen, walking down Buckingham Palace Road, a way forward. With Markham pushing hard behind you, the appointment is yours by 1900. You are promoted to commander, and you are given the discovery. The British National Antarctic Expedition, 1901 to 1904. And one fine day, the ship slips her moorings and points herself south, and you go with her. This reluctant polar man who didn't even fancy the idea, sailing off the edge of every map you know, and then you see it. The ice. I wish I could give you the first sight of it the way it must have struck you, because nothing in a Devon childhood, nothing in a wooden training hulk or a torpedo school or a drawing room in London, nothing prepares a man for this. The barrier rising out of the sea like a white cliff with no end. The immense ringing silence of a place that has never cared whether a single human being lived or died in it. The cold, terrible, impossible beauty of the bottom of the world. You came for the practical reasons, the promotion and the prize. But the ice gives you something no drawing room ever could. Something you didn't even know you were missing. And whatever it is, it gets its hooks in you deep, the kind of hook a man spends the rest of his life trying to understand. There is work to do, and you learn it the hard way, because there is no other way to learn it. You learn man-hauling, that brutal art of strapping yourself into a harness and dragging a loaded sledge across the snow by sheer animal effort. And in the southern summer of 1902, you set out to go farther south than anyone ever has. And you take two men with you. One is Edward Wilson, Bill. Uncle Bill, the men call him, though he's not old. A doctor and a scientist and a painter of quiet skies, and the steadiest, gentlest soul you will ever know. From this journey on, he is the truest friend you have. Whatever comes, Bill Wilson is the center you can trust. The other is a young, ambitious, barrel-chested officer named Ernest Shackleton. The three of you go south, dragging your sledge into the white. And late in December of 1902, you reach it. 82 degrees, 17 minutes south, farthest south. No human being in the history of the world has ever stood closer to the bottom of the planet than the three of you right now in this empty white silence. It should be a triumph, and it is. But the ice is already teaching you its other lesson, the harder one, the one underneath the glory. It is teaching you what the journey costs, because the way south was the easy part. Now you must get home, and your bodies are beginning to fail. Scurvy creeps into the party, that old sailor's curse, the gums and the weakness, and the slow draining of strength. Snow blindness sears your eyes from the endless glare. You are hungry, properly hungry, in a way comfortable men never are. And it is Shackleton who suffers worst. He breaks down on the return, coughing, collapsing, unable to pull. You all just barely make it back alive. And here a small human thorn works its way in, the kind that festers. Shackleton is sent home early, invalided out on the relief ship, judged unfit to stay. To a proud and ambitious man, that is a hard thing to swallow, being shipped off as the one who couldn't manage. Whatever the rights of it, a coolness opens between you and Shackleton in that moment. A rivalry, quiet but real, that neither of you will quite shake. But that is a small shadow on what is for you an enormous dawn. Because when the Discovery brings you home to Britain in the autumn of 1904, you are no longer a careful, unremarkable torpedo officer with a family to support and a career that had reached its ceiling. You are a hero, a national hero, the man who went farther south than anyone alive. They promote you to captain. They want to hear you speak, want to shake your hand, want to read every word about the White Silence and the farthest south. The dreamy, seasick boy from the brewer's house in Devon, the reluctant explorer who confessed he had no taste for any of this, has come home famous. And amid all of it, the speeches and the handshakes and the applause, you find yourself pulled back into the social whirl of London. The dinners, the salons, the bright, clever rooms full of artists and writers and people who have never once been cold in their lives. And it is in one of those rooms that you meet her. She is across the room, and she is not looking at you. That, all by itself, is something of a novelty these days. You are a hero now, remember. You have grown used to a certain warmth in a room when you enter it, a turning of heads, a softening of voices, the particular glow people give off when they are near someone famous and rather hoping he'll notice. You don't seek it out, but you felt it. And here, in this bright, clever London room full of artists and writers, is a young woman who is plainly, serenely, entirely unmoved by any of it. Her name is Kathleen Bruce, and she is a sculptor. Not a dabbler, mind you. Not one of those genteel young ladies who paint watercolors of the garden to fill an afternoon. Kathleen has studied in Paris. She has worked under Rodin himself, the greatest sculptor alive, and moved through a world of bohemians and geniuses, of people who make things with their hands and don't much care what anyone thinks of them for it. She is fierce. She is independent in a way that is faintly scandalous for the time. And she has a clear-eyed, almost impatient way of looking at people as if she is already sizing up the bones beneath the face, deciding what they're really made of. She is, in short, the last sort of woman to be impressed by a man simply because the newspapers are. And you are smitten. I have to smile at this, Con, because for a man so often lost behind his own eyes, so dreamy and inward, you have walked straight into the one person in London guaranteed not to let you drift. She doesn't flatter you. She challenges you. She talks to you as an equal, as a fellow person of substance, not as a monument to be admired. And there is something in that, something bracing that catches you the way the ice once caught you. You came into this room a famous man, slightly weary of being famous. You will leave it in time as a man in love. The courtship is not all smooth sailing. Kathleen is wary of marriage, jealous of her freedom, slow to give up the wide bohemian life she has built. And you are a busy naval officer with a family to support and a career to mind. But the pull between you is the real thing. And on the 2nd of September, 1908, in the Chapel Royal at Hampton Court Palace, you marry her. Picture that for a moment. The old red palace, the autumn light, the dreamy boy from the brewer's house in Devon, now a captain, now a husband, standing beside a woman the equal of any man in that chapel. You have come a very long way from Outlands. And then, almost exactly a year later, on the 14th of September, 1909, your son is born. You name him Peter. Now, there is a lovely little story that gets told about that name, and I should clear it up for you, because it isn't quite true and you'd want the truth. People will say in years to come that the boy was named after Peter Pan. And it's an understandable mistake, because the great J.M. Barrie, the very man who dreamed up Peter Pan, is a dear friend of yours and becomes one of little Peter's godfathers. But no, the boy is named for Sir Clements Markham, the old enthusiast who once spotted a 16-year-old midshipman in the West Indies and changed the whole course of his life. You name your son after the man who gave you yours. There is a kind of quiet gratitude in that, isn't there? A thread running back. What I most want you to feel, though, is what it does to you, this small new person. Because here is the thing about a baby. A baby does not care that you went farther south than anyone alive. A baby is not impressed by your medals or your captaincy or the white silence at the bottom of the world. A baby simply needs you, blindly and completely, in a way nothing ever has. And you, the great explorer, the man who hauled a sledge across the roof of the planet, are rather hopeless with him. I mean it kindly. But it is funny. The careful, competent naval officer, who can navigate by the stars and calculate a torpedo's run and command the loyalty of hard men in hard places, holding this tiny, squirming bundle as though it might go off at any moment. The faintly panicked stillness of a man who has faced down the Antarctic and is now thoroughly outmatched by something that weighs less than his boots. You hold him the way you'd hold a live shell, and Kathleen no doubt watches with that level, amused look of hers, and lets you figure it out. You love them. That's the plain truth of it. For the first time in your whole striving, dutiful life, you have something that is purely, simply yours to come home to. A warm room, a clever wife, a small boy whose whole future is just beginning. You have at last everything to lose, and you would think, wouldn't you, that this would be the thing that finally settles a man. That a wife and a son would be the anchor that holds you here, in the warmth, in the lamplight, far from the ice that nearly killed you once already. But that is not who Kathleen is. And it is not in the end who you are, because Kathleen does not want a tame husband. She did not marry a comfortable man to watch him grow comfortable. She believes in you, in the largest version of you, the one who does great things, and far from dimming your ambition, she sharpens it. She is the one who tells you to go, to attempt the thing no one has done, to reach for the very bottom of the world and plant your name there. So you have a home now, a real one, warm and full of love. And in the same heart that holds it, the old pull is stirring again. The white horizon, the unfinished thing down south. The one prize, still sitting out there in the cold, that no Englishman has yet claimed. You have everything to lose, and you are about to go anyway. The dream you are chasing has, if you're honest about it, two faces. And they don't always look at each other kindly. The first face is science. Real science, serious and patient. Antarctica is the last great blank on the map. A whole continent almost entirely unknown. And you intend to study it properly. Geology, magnetism, the weather, the strange hardy life that clings to the ice. To your dear friend Bill Wilson, who will be your chief of scientific staff, this is the true reason to go, not glory, knowledge, the honest work of finding out what is actually there. The second face is the pole, the geographic South Pole. 90 degrees south, the exact bottom of the world, a point no human foot has ever touched. And this is the face the public loves, the one the newspapers want, the one that loosens purse strings and fills lecture halls. Because, make no mistake, this whole enterprise runs on money, and money is desperately tight. The expedition will cost something like £40,000, an enormous sum, and you have to raise much of it yourself, hat in hand, from public subscription and loans and the kindness of patriotic strangers. The ship alone, a battered old Scottish whaler called the Terra Nova, costs the better part of £13,000. So you carry both dreams at once. Science for the soul of it. The pole for the funding and the fame. And you tell yourself, the way busy men do, that you can serve them both. On the 15th of June, 1910, the Terra Nova leaves Cardiff. She is a sturdy, ugly, beloved old thing, packed to the gunwales and then some, riding low and heavy in the water under the sheer weight of everything a continent's worth of men and animals will need for years at the edge of survival. And she is bound, by way of half the world, for the ice. Now, about that sea, I cannot let this pass, Con, because the universe clearly has a sense of humor where you are concerned. Do you remember the small dreamy boy who turned green on a calm afternoon in a sheltered harbor, the future conqueror of the South Pole, whose stomach betrayed him on water that was barely moving? Well, here he is, a captain now, a national hero, sailing the heaving wild oceans of the southern hemisphere on an overloaded whaler in some of the roughest water on Earth. And the sea has lost none of its talent for finding a man's soft spots. The Terra Nova pitches and rolls and labors, and somewhere, off the bottom of the world, a storm very nearly sends her down altogether. The pumps choked, the men bailing for their lives, animals and coal and precious petrol washing about in the chaos. The seasick boy grew up. The sea, it seems, did not let him forget where he started. But the ship lives, and so do you. And you push on toward New Zealand, toward the last edge of the known world, toward the jumping-off point for the white. It is at Melbourne that the telegram finds you. It is short, almost rude in its shortness. It has been sent by a Norwegian, a man you have heard of, a hard and brilliant polar traveller named Roald Amundsen. And here is the thing. Amundsen was supposed to be going north. The whole world believed he was bound for the Arctic, for the North Pole, off in the opposite direction entirely. No concern of yours at all. The telegram corrects that belief in 14 words. Beg leave to inform you, Fram proceeding Antarctic. You read it more than once, I should think. Fram is his ship. Antarctic is south. South is where you are going. There is no mistaking it, no softening it, no other way to read those flat little words. Amundsen is not going north. He is coming here. He is coming for the pole. Your pole. The one prize you have crossed the whole world and begged the whole nation to fund a chance at. And just like that, what was an expedition becomes a race. You feel it land somewhere low in the gut. A tightening. The science is still there. The soul of the thing, the honest work. But over the top of it now, there is a clock, ticking, and another man at the other end of the continent who wants exactly what you want and means to get there first. You did not ask for a rival, you have one anyway, but you are not facing it alone. And this is the moment, I think, to properly meet the men who will be facing it with you, because a few of them are already the kind of men you would trust with your life. You already know Bill Wilson, Uncle Bill the men call him, the doctor, the painter of quiet skies, the steadiest and gentlest soul you have ever known, the center you can trust when everything else is shifting. Wherever this goes, Bill is beside you. Then there is Bertie Bowers, Lieutenant Henry Bowers, in charge of the stores, and he is a marvel. Short, square, built like a little barrel, with a nose that earned him his nickname, and an engine inside him that simply does not quit. The man is tireless. Worse than tireless, he seems genuinely impervious to cold, the sort who'll cheerfully strip down in temperatures that have other men weeping, then go back to work. You have never met anyone quite like him. Out here, an engine that simply doesn't quit is worth more than gold. There is Titus Oates. Captain Lawrence Oates, the soldier, a cavalry officer with a Boer War wound that left one leg shorter than the other, put in charge of the ponies. Oates is laconic to the point of comedy, a dry, blunt, horsewise Englishman who says little and means all of it. He is also, privately, not at all sure about how you do things, and he is not a man who pretends, but he is loyal to the bone, and where he gives his loyalty, he gives it completely. There is Taff Evans, Petty Officer Edgar Evans, a great burly, genial Welshman, the strong man of the whole party, a Discovery veteran who knows sledges and gear better than anyone aboard. When you need raw strength and steady hands, you look to Taff. He is the kind of strong that makes the men around him feel safe. And there is young Cherry, Apsley Cherry Garrard, the baby of the officers, barely 24. An earnest, kind, hopelessly short-sighted young zoologist who is so determined to come on this expedition that he donated £1,000 of his own money to the cause and came along even after being told there might be no place for him. There is something terribly endearing about Cherry. He wants so badly to be of use. These are your men, and the way you'll get them and all your gear across the ice rests on 3 kinds of transport, which is rather the trouble. You have motor sledges, brand new, experimental, the great mechanical hope of the modern age. You have dogs, and you have ponies. 19 of them, Siberian ponies, hauled all this way to do the heavy work on the barrier. And oh, the ponies! Oates takes one look at them and despairs. These are not, to put it gently, the finest horseflesh ever assembled. They were bought far away by men who, whatever their gifts, were not cavalry officers. And Oates, who is a cavalry officer to his marrow, is appalled. The greatest lot of crocks, he calls them. A sorry, knock-kneed, broken-winded collection of nags. And he the man who has to coax actual work out of them at the bottom of the world. You can almost see him, standing among these poor shaggy creatures in the cold jaw set, muttering to himself about the things a soldier must endure. So, a divided dream, a reluctant fleet of crocs, a clock you didn't start, ticking now in the back of your mind, and a Norwegian somewhere out there across the same white continent, racing you for the one thing you came to claim. You point the Terra Nova at the ice. The hut goes up at a place you call Cape Evans, on the shore of Ross Island, with the great smoking cone of a volcano at your back and the frozen sea in front of you. It is a simple thing, really. A long wooden box, about 50 feet by 25, prefabricated and shipped in pieces, and raised by the labor of your men, packed round with insulating seaweed against the cold to come. But when it is finished, when the stove is lit, and the lamps are glowing, and the gear is stowed, and 25 men have somewhere warm to lay their heads at the bottom of the world, you look at it with real pride. The finest, you write, that has ever been erected in the polar regions. And you mean it. You will need it to be. Because the dark is coming. This is the thing people who have never been south cannot quite picture. The polar night. The sun sinks toward the horizon, lower and lower each day, and then, one day it does not come back up at all. And it stays gone. Not for an evening, not for a long northern winter's afternoon, but for 4 solid months. 4 months in which the world outside the hut is a black, frozen, howling waste, and the only sun you have is the one you make for yourselves, inside, out of lamplight and warmth and the company of other men. And here, Con, is where I find something genuinely wonderful about you. Because a lesser commander might have just tried to survive that dark, endured it, grimly, counting days. But that is not what you do. You understand something about men, something you learned in all those grey, dutiful years, which is that what breaks people in the cold is very often not the cold at all. It is the mind. The boredom, the brooding, the slow rot of too many men in too small a space with nothing to lift them. So you build, very deliberately, a kind of warmth that has nothing to do with the stove. You have lectures. Real ones, several a week, each man in turn holding forth on his specialty, science and travel and whatever else. The wardroom turned into a little floating university in the middle of the long night. You have a gramophone, a proper HMV, scratching out its tunes into the dark, music in a place that has never heard any. You play football. Yes, football. Grown men chasing a ball about on the ice in the strange blue half-light of midday twilight, breath steaming, laughing, falling over. You revive the old expedition newspaper, full of jokes and bad poetry and gentle ribbing. You make, out of nothing, in the most hostile place on earth, something that feels astonishingly like a home. And the food. There is a midwinter feast, when the year turns at its very darkest, that the men talk about for ages after. A proper blowout of a meal, with all the trimmings the cook can conjure, candles and songs and full bellies, and the deep animal comfort of warmth and plenty held up against all that dark outside. And there is your birthday. The 6th of June, 1911. You turn 43 down there in the ice, and your men make a fuss of you, and for one evening, the bottom of the world is about as cheerful a place as you could ask for. I want you to hold on to the warmth of this. The blubber stove ticking, the reek of seal and pipe smoke and wet wool, the scratch of the gramophone, the murmur and laughter of men who have become, in the dark, something like a family. This is the warmth of it. The company. The light held up against all that dark. But not everyone stays by the fire. In the deepest, blackest pit of that winter, 3 of your men do something so extraordinary, so nearly mad, that it stands alone in the whole history of the ice. Bill Wilson, your truest friend, gets it into his head that he must have the eggs of the emperor penguin. The emperor is a strange and wonderful bird, and it does a strange and wonderful thing. It breeds in the very depth of the Antarctic winter, in the cold and the dark, when no sane creature should. And Wilson, the scientist, the naturalist, believes those eggs might hold a secret about how life itself is put together, a link reaching back down the long chain of living things. So Wilson and Birdie Bowers and earnest young Cherry Garrard set out in the middle of the polar night to go and get some. It is, by any measure, a horror. They man-haul their sledges across the black ice toward a place called Cape Crozier, in temperatures that sink past 60 degrees below zero. And, on the worst nights, far lower than that. Cold, so deep their teeth crack in their heads. Cold that turns their breath to ice, and their clothing to armor, and every hour into a battle simply not to die. A blizzard rips their tent clean away into the dark, and for a while they lie there with nothing between them and the killing sky, and by some miracle they find it again. And they reach the penguins. And they get their eggs. 3 of them. And they drag themselves back, frostbitten and half-dead and unbroken, having gone through the worst thing 3 men can survive for the sake of 3 eggs and the pursuit of knowledge. When they stagger back into the hut, you can scarcely believe what they've come through. The sheer, stubborn, magnificent madness of it. And the bond between those 3, forged out there in the dark, is something you can see in their faces. That is what your hut made. That is what these men are. There is other work to do that season too, work closer to the ground and more practical. The Shui, one piece of it falls to you to decide. Before the great march south can ever happen, you must lay depots. Caches of food and fuel set out along the route in advance so that the Polar Party will have supplies waiting as it goes and, crucially, as it returns. The most important of these is to be a great one, a full ton of stores, the lifeline of the whole homeward journey. The plan is to lay it well south, around the 80th parallel. But the depot-laying journey is hard going, and the trouble, as Oates warned, is the ponies. The poor beasts are suffering. They flounder in the soft snow, they tire, the weakest of them are visibly failing in the cold, and you can see they have given nearly all they have. And you reach a point on the barrier, short of where you'd meant to be, where you have to make a call. Push the exhausted, dying ponies on for another 30-odd miles to plant the depot exactly where the plan says. Or stop here, now, at 79 degrees and 29 minutes south, lay your ton of supplies, and spare the animals the miles that may kill them. Oates wants you to push on. The soldier is blunt about it. Go further south with the depot, he says, and while you're at it, kill the failing ponies for their meat, and let the stronger ones make the distance. It is the hard, practical cavalryman's logic, and there is sense in it. But you cannot do it. You will not drive these worn-out creatures into the ground, and you will not slaughter them for the sake of a few more miles on a map. You have seen more than enough of this kind of cruelty to animals, and something in you simply refuses. So you stop. You lay your great cache right here, and you call it 1 Ton Depot, and you turn the weary ponies for home before the worst of it can take them. It is a decision made out of decency, plainly, in the cold, with tired animals in front of you and a clear conscience, the price you're willing to pay. You set the marker. You start back. And that is that. So, the long winter turns, and the work gets done, and the great dark slowly begins to loosen its grip. And before we go any further into it, let me pause, just for a breath, the way I do. There was a gramophone in that hut. a scratchy little machine pouring music into the longest night on Earth, and it helped those men, genuinely, through the dark, gave them something warm to hold on to when the cold pressed in on every side. If these quiet histories do something like that for you, if they help you let go of the day and drift down toward rest, then a rating on whatever app you're listening through is a small kindness that helps another tired soul awake somewhere in their own dark, find their way to the same comfort. That's all. A tap if it's helped. Thank you for it. Now, back to the ice. The sun is returning. Each day there is a little more light leaking over the horizon, a little more color in the world, and with it comes the thing every man in that hut has been waiting for through all those frozen months. Spring. The season of travel. The window, narrow and precious, when the great journey can finally begin. The depots are laid. The men are ready. The ponies, such as they are fed and waiting. And out there to the south, past the edge of everything you can see, the white road runs all the way to the bottom of the world. It is time to go. On the 1st of November, 1911, you walk out of the warm and into the white, and you do not mean to come back the same way you went. It is not one neat departure. That is the first thing to understand about it. A polar march of this size goes out in stages, like a wave that throws its furthest, reach the smallest distance up the sand. There are the motor sledges, the great mechanical hope of the age, coughing and sputtering off ahead with their loads. There are the ponies, plodding under Oates's anxious eye. There are the dog teams. And there are men in harness, leaning into the traces. The whole long caravan creeps south across the barrier, that vast flat shelf of ice, and behind you the volcano sinks lower and lower against the sky until one day you turn and it is simply not there anymore. The motors fail first. They were always going to, if you are honest. The cold is hard on engines built in a gentler country, and one by one they cough and shudder and give up the ghost, and the loads they were carrying go onto the backs of men. Then, in their turn, the ponies. The poor, faithful crocks have done what they could, leaning into their breast collars day after day, hauling their loads through the soft snow of the barrier to the very foot of the great glacier. But the barrier is the end of their road. At a place the men call the gateway, the ponies can go no further, and there the hard necessity of the journey is done with them. You go on without them. And then, higher up, the dog teams are sent back too, turned for home with their drivers, the sledges growing fewer and the line of you shorter, until at last there is only the oldest and the most brutal form of travel left in the whole world. There is only man-hauling. You strap yourself into the harness, a band of leather and canvas across your chest and shoulders, and you lean your whole weight forward, and behind you, a sledge, loaded past 200 pounds, a man begins, grudgingly, to move. This is how you will go now. Not riding, not driving, pulling. Your own body, and the bodies of the men beside you, turned into the engine that drags everything you need across the top of the world. And the road tilts up. The Beardmore Glacier is one of the largest rivers of ice on the planet, a frozen torrent 100 miles long, pouring down off the high interior, and you must climb it. Up and up, hauling, through a country of crevasses that open without warning, blue-throated cracks in the ice deep enough to swallow a man and his sledge and never give them back. You learn to read the surface, to feel through your boots where it might give. You fall, sometimes, to the length of your harness, jerked up short, with your legs swinging over nothing, and the cold breath of the crevasse rising past your face, and your companions brace and haul you out, and you find your feet, and you go on. There is nothing else to do but go on. The sledge runners grind. The traces bite into your shoulders, and then into the bruises the traces made yesterday, until the ache stops being something you notice and becomes simply the shape of the day. And slowly, agonizingly, a mile, and then another mile, the glacier lifts you out of the world you knew and onto the roof of it. The plateau. 10,000 feet up and flat to every horizon, a white desert with nothing on it at all. The air is thin here, thin enough that the work of hauling leaves you gasping, where at sea level it would only tire you. The cold is a different cold, a high, dry, killing cold. And the surface, oh, the surface. Some days the snow is so dry and crystalline that the runners will not glide on it. You write it down just as it feels. It is like pulling over desert sand. There is not the least glide in the world. You throw your weight against the harness, and the sledge does not slide. It drags, grinding forward inch by stubborn inch, and your heart sinks every time it stops dead against a ridge of sastrugi, those hard, wind-carved waves of snow that catch the runners and jolt the whole load to a halt. You are hungry now, properly, gnawingly hungry, in the way of men burning far more than they can eat. The ration is the same each day, weighed out to the ounce, the hard biscuit and the pemmican, and the small luxuries of sugar and tea, and the one warm event of it is the hoosh at night, the pemmican boiled up with crushed biscuit on the roaring little primus, eaten lying down in the bags with the steam rising into your frozen beards. It is the best moment of the day, that hot meal, and it is over too soon, and it is not enough. Every man knows it is not enough. And so the talk, in the tent, in the dark, drifts again and again toward food. Feasts you will eat when you are home. Meals you half remember from another life. Whole imaginary dinners described in loving detail by men too tired to do anything but dream out loud. It is a hunger that follows you down into sleep and is waiting for you when you wake. And here, the supporting parties begin to peel away. For you are not alone out here, not yet. Other men have hauled their own sledges all this way for one purpose, to help carry the loads forward and then turn back, so that a chosen few can make the final dash to the pole with full supplies behind them. One party turns for home down on the glacier. And then, on the 3rd of January, 1912, At 87 degrees and 32 minutes south, the last supporting party reaches the point where they too must go back. Teddy Evans and Lashley and Crean. From here, it is yours to finish. And here you make a choice. The plan, all along, had been for 4 men to make the final push. 4 men, 4 sets of rations weighed out, a tent sewn for 4, every calculation built around the number 4. But standing here, on the high white plateau with the pole 150 miles south, you decide to take 5. You add Birdie Bowers to the polar party. Bowers, the tireless one, the little barrel of a man who never tires and never complains, and seems made for exactly this. You want his strength for the last of it. There is one small awkwardness in it. Under the 4-man plan, Bowers had sent his skis back down the glacier with one of the returning parties. So now, while the rest of you glide along on skis, Birdie Bowers marches the whole way on foot, plodding through the snow on his own 2 legs, hauling in the traces beside you, and never once, in your hearing, calling it hard. You shake hands with the men going home. You watch their 3 figures dwindle northward until the white swallows them. And then there are the 5 of you. Wilson, Oates, Taff Evans, Bowers on foot, and you. The humor has not left the tent entirely, even now. It has only gone dry and thin, the way everything out here goes dry and thin. A man will say something flat and exhausted about the surface, or the food, or his own frozen beard, and someone will huff out a laugh, because what else is there to do? And, for a moment, the tent is a warmer place. That is the kind of cheer that is left to you up here. Not the football and the gramophone and the midwinter feast. Just 5 tired men lying in their bags in a tiny tent on the roof of the world, finding what small warmth they can in each other's company before the next day's hauling. 150 miles. That is all that lies between you and the bottom of the planet, now. 150 miles of this same flat-killing white, to be crossed 1 step, 1 drag of the harness, 1 grinding hour at a time. You point your faces south, and you go for the pole. It is the 16th of January, and Bowers sees it first. He has the sharpest eyes of any of you, Birdie does, and you are all hauling along in the traces, heads down, watching the snow pass under your boots the way you have watched it for weeks, when something in the way he stops makes the rest of you look up. There, ahead of you on the perfect emptiness of the snow, is a speck, a small dark speck where there should be nothing at all, where for 150 miles there has been nothing at all, only white meeting white meeting white. You tell yourselves it is a Sazdragus, a trick of shadow, a cairn, one of your own party threw up and forgot. You tell yourselves anything, but you keep hauling toward it, and it does not go away. You haul toward it, and the speck becomes a shape, and the shape becomes a flag. A black flag tied to the runner of a sledge planted in the snow. And around it, when you reach it, The rest of the story written plain in the surface for anyone to read. The marks of sledge runners, lines of ski tracks, and the paw prints. Many of them, the small, neat pad marks of many dogs crossing and recrossing the snow that you had let yourself believe no human foot had ever touched. You stand there and you understand it all at once, the way you understand a blow before you feel it. Amundsen. He has been here. The Norwegian, with his dogs and his skis, the man whose curt little telegram reached you a world ago at Melbourne. He has come, and he has stood on the ground you crossed half the earth to reach, and he has done it first, and he is already gone. Already turning these same tracks homeward, while you stand here in the wind, reading the proof of it. You take out your notebook. Even now, even here, and you write down what is happening to you in your own hand, plainly, because that is the one thing you have never stopped doing. The worst has happened, you write, or nearly the worst. The Norwegians have forestalled us and are first at the pole. You stand among your men, and you look at their faces, these four who have hauled themselves to the literal end of the earth beside you, on foot, in Bowers's case, every step, and the disappointment that goes through you is not for yourself. You write that too. You are very sorry for your loyal companions. They have given everything, asked nothing, trusted you the whole impossible way, and this black flag, is what waits at the end of it. All the daydreams must go, you write. It will be a wearisome return. And the next day, the 17th of January, you cover the last short distance to the pole itself. 90 degrees south. The exact bottom of the world, the point you have carried in your mind for years, like a coal you could not put down. There is nothing there. That is the thing no one tells you. The pole is not a place. It is only more of the same white nothing, flat and featureless, and screaming with a thin, bitter wind, indistinguishable from 1,000 miles of plateau behind you, except for the small, cold camp the Norwegians left to mark it. There is a tent, dark against all that white, and a note left waiting inside it, and the note carries a date. The 14th of December. You do the arithmetic without wanting to. A month. 34 days. While you were still grinding up the glacier with the harness biting your shoulders, still telling yourself it was all to play for, it was already finished. Already lost. You simply hadn't known it yet. You have come to the most fought-over point on the planet, and it is, simply, an empty patch of snow. Great God, you write. This is an awful place. And then, because you are who you are, because there is a kind of iron in you that does not break even now, you write the next thing too. The truest, hardest, most human thing in the whole notebook. Now for the run home, and a desperate struggle. I wonder if we can do it. You do the small human things that men do when there is nothing grand left to do. You set up the camera. There is a length of string for the shutter, and you gather the 5 of you in front of it, and you take your photograph at the bottom of the world. 5 men, beards rimed white with frost, faces burned dark and cracked by the cold and the glare, eyes that have given up something they will not get back. It is not a photograph of triumph. It is a photograph of 5 exhausted men who walked to the end of everything and found another man's flag already planted there, and who are about to turn around and walk all the way home. There is a stick of chocolate, broken and shared between you. There is a single cigarette that Wilson has carried all this way, lit now in the wind and passed from cold hand to cold hand, a few mouthfuls of warmth each. Small mercies. The smallest. You take what comfort there is in them, because there is not much else, and because you are together, and because that, in the end, is the only thing the white cannot take from you. And then you turn around. More than 800 miles lie between you and the hut. More than 800 miles of glacier and plateau and barrier, of crevasse and sastrugi, and that desert sand snow, all of it to be crossed, again, the same way you came. One drag of the harness at a time. Only now, there is no flag at the end of it to march toward. No prize. No dream pulling you forward across the white. There is only the long way back, and the people at home, and the slow, cold arithmetic of supplies and miles. You settle the harness onto your aching shoulders, and you start the long walk home. The way north begins, and almost at once you understand that the journey out was the kind part. But before I take you another step into that cold, let me say one small thing, quietly, the way I do, and then I will leave you be. If there is someone you love who carries more than they let on, someone who keeps their hardest weather to themselves and tells you they are fine when you suspect they are not, you might think of them tonight. And if a story like this one has ever helped you, ever kept you company in your own dark hour, then consider sharing it with them. Send them the episode that meant the most to you. Sometimes, the kindest thing is simply to sit beside someone in the cold and let them know they are not hauling alone. There. That is all. Now, back into it. Back to the harness, and the white, and the long road home. You retrace your own tracks, when you can still find them, north across the high plateau, and down toward the head of the glacier. And the cold comes for you in a way it did not on the way out. It is abnormal. This cold, deeper than the season has any right to be. The days bitter and the nights worse. A still hard-killing cold that sits on the camp and will not lift. You climb into frozen sleeping bags at night and lie shivering, waiting for your own body heat to thaw a hollow you can rest in. You pull frozen boots onto frozen feet in the morning. You haul your stiffened windproofs on like a man muscling into armor. And the talk in the tent is of food, always of food, because there is not enough of it. The depots you laid going out are spaced for a march that is going well, and this march is not going well. You are slower than you meant to be, hungrier than the ration can answer, burning yourselves down to nothing in the traces every day, and never quite getting it back at night. We talk of little but food, you write. It is the plainest kind of hunger, the kind that fills a man's dreams and empties his strength. And then, there is the fuel. This is the cruelest discovery of the return, and it comes at the depots, the very places that were meant to save you. The paraffin, the precious oil you need to melt snow into water and cook the hot hoosh that is the one warm thing in your day, is short. Not stolen, not miscounted. Gone. The cans were sealed with little washers of leather, and in this savage cold, the leather has gone brittle and failed, and the oil has crept out and evaporated away into the dry air. Can after can, so that you reach a depot dreaming of a hot meal and a hot drink, and find the tin light in your hand, half empty. Less oil means less water, and less water means thirst, and less warmth, less of the one small thing that stands between a frozen man and the end of him. You did nothing wrong. No one did. The cold simply reached into your stores ahead of you and quietly took. And so the days fold one into the next, each the same and each a little harder than the last. You wake stiff in a frozen bag that has stolen your warmth all night instead of keeping it. You force your feet into boots gone hard as wood. You haul on your windproofs, frozen overnight, into the exact shape they held when you peeled them off, and force your arms down sleeves gone stiff as stovepipe. You break camp, which takes hours that your hands can barely manage. And then you lean into the harness, and you pull north, toward the next depot, and the next after that, counting the miles, and counting the food, and counting the oil. The whole journey reduced now to plain, hard arithmetic, and the will to keep adding it up. And it is Taff Evans who begins to go. You would not have guessed it. If anyone had asked you at the start which of the 5 would last the longest, you would have said Evans without thinking. The big, genial Welshman, the strong man of the whole expedition, the one whose raw power made the men around him feel safe. He is the kind of strong that seems like it could not run out. But it is running out. It begins small, the way these things do. A wound on his hand that will not heal, that the cold keeps raw and open. Frost-bitten fingers. And then, coming down the glacier, a fall on the hard blue ice, a heavy fall, and after it, something in him is not the same. You suspect a blow to the head, though out here there is no way to know, no way to do anything but watch. He grows slow. He grows quiet, then strange. The big, steady man you have leaned on for years begins to lag in the traces, to fumble with his gear, to drift away somewhere behind his own eyes. You write it down because you write everything down, and because the truth of it must be told plainly, even when it breaks your heart to tell it. Evans has nearly broken down in brain, you write. He is absolutely changed from his normal, self-reliant self. You do not hurry him. Understand that. Whatever the cold logic of the miles, whatever the arithmetic of food and fuel says, you do not leave Taff Evans behind. You wait. You help him. You go at the pace he can manage, all of you, because he is one of yours, and you do not abandon your own in the snow, not while he can still take a step. But the cold does not wait, and the body has its limits, and on the 17th of February, 1912, near the foot of the great glacier you fought so hard to climb, Edgar Evans comes to the end of his. He falls behind on the march. You miss him, and you stop, and you go back for him through the cold, and you find him on his knees in the snow, sunk down, his clothing disordered, his bare hands frostbitten, that wild, lost look in his eyes of a man who is no longer quite with you. There is no anger in it, no struggle. He has simply come to the end of what a body can give. You and the others get him up between you, and you bring him into the tent, and you do for him the little that can be done, which is warmth and shelter and the company of men who love him. And there, in the small dark hours, quietly, without a fight, the strongest man among you slips away. The first of your number, the white has taken. You do not leave him quickly. There is a stillness in the tent that is different from any stillness before it. 4 of you now, where there were 5. 4 men in the harness, where there were 5. 4 faces in the lamplight, 4 sets of frozen boots in the morning. The march has taken one of you, the one you would have bet on last, and the rest of you must rise and pull on your gear and lean once more into the traces and go on north across the ice. Because the people at home are still there, somewhere past all this white, and the only way back to them is through it. So you go on. 4 of you now, and the cold is not finished. It is the feet, in the end, that begin to take the soldier. You have watched it coming for a while now, the way you watch weather gather on a far horizon, helpless to do anything but note it and dread it. Oates says little. He was always a man who said little, dry and blunt and horsewise, the cavalry officer who looked at your poor ponies a lifetime ago and called them the greatest lot of crocs. But he has stopped making even those small remarks. He goes quiet in a way that is not like him, and you understand, without being told, what that quiet costs. Because his feet are rotting in his boots. The frostbite took hold somewhere back on the plateau, and then the cold would not let it heal, and now it has gone past frostbite into something worse, the flesh dying, while the man it belongs to is still walking on it. Each morning, it takes him longer to force his ruined feet into his frozen finnesko, those soft fur boots gone hard as wood overnight, and each morning he does it without complaint, and rises, and takes his place in the harness. But he cannot keep your pace. He has become, through no fault of his own, the slowest of you, and out here, the slowest man sets the speed of the whole party, and the whole party is running out of food and fuel and time. He knows this. That is the unbearable part. He lies awake in the bag beside you, doing the same cold arithmetic you are doing, and he reaches the same answer, and he is brave enough to say it out loud when none of the rest of you will. He asks you to leave him behind. He says it plainly, the way he says everything. Go on without me. Let me stay here. You are 3 strong men dragging a fourth who can no longer pull his weight, and every mile you slow for his sake is a mile of food and warmth you will not have at the other end. The hard cavalryman's logic turned now upon himself. It is the most generous thing a man can offer, and he offers it without a tremor, as though he were asking you to pass the biscuit. And you refuse. You will not do it. You tell him so, all of you, with one voice. You did not leave Taff Evans in the snow while he could still take a step, and you will not leave Titus Oates either, not while he can rise in the morning, not while there is breath in him. You drag him along with you, slower and slower, because some things are simply not done, because a man does not abandon his own to save himself, because the harness across your chest is a kind of promise, and you mean to keep it as long as you are able. So he goes on. For days he goes on feet that no longer deserve the name, and he does not ask again. But you can see what it is doing to him, the shame of it, the slow agony of being the thing that is killing his friends. You can see him weighing it, in the long dark hours when the gale presses the canvas and nobody sleeps. And then comes a night you will not forget for what little is left of your life. It is on or about the 16th of March, though out here the days have begun to lose their edges, and you are no longer entirely certain. It is, you realize, near his birthday. He is turning 32, this dry, blunt, loyal soldier, 32 years old in a frozen tent at the bottom of the world, with his feet rotting out from under him. The blizzard is screaming outside, the worst kind of weather, the kind that pins men where they lie. And in the night, you hear him stir. He has been suffering terribly, and saying almost nothing about it, which is somehow worse than any cry. Now, in the dark, with the wind grinding against the cloth, he sits up. You hear the stiff rustle of a man forcing frozen limbs to obey him one last time. And he says something. He says it quietly, almost lightly, with that flat, dry, unbearably English understatement that has been his the whole way, as though he were only stepping out to check the ponies, as though he would be back before the kettle boiled. I am just going outside, he says, and maybe some time. And he pulls back the flap of the tent, and the cold comes roaring in, and he goes out into the white. You let him go. Understand that. You do not stop him. You do not lunge for him or call him back or beg him to stay, though every part of you that is still a frightened animal wants to. Because you understand exactly what he is doing, and why, and what it will cost you to honor it. He is giving the three of you the only gift he has left to give. He is taking the brake off the sledge. He is walking out so that you might have a chance to walk on. And to drag him back into the tent would be to refuse him the one dignity the cold has not yet stolen, the right to choose how he meets it. So you lie still, and you listen to the blizzard take the sound of his footsteps, and then there is no sound but the wind. He does not come back. You knew he would not. He walks out into a blizzard in temperatures that kill in minutes, with no boots that could save him and no intention of being saved. And somewhere out there in the white that swallowed him, quietly, The soldier lies down, and the cold takes the rest. You never see him again. There is no body to bring in, no grave to dig. The storm closes over the place he was, the way water closes over a stone. In the morning, you take out your notebook. Of course you do. You have written down every hard thing on this whole impossible journey, and you will not flinch from this one. Your fingers are clumsy and slow on the pencil, but you find the words, and they are the truest words you have for him. We knew that poor Oates was walking to his death, you write, but though we tried to dissuade him, we knew it was the act of a brave man and an English gentleman. You sit with that for a moment, the pencil resting on the page. There is so much you cannot say. So you say the simplest thing, the thing that holds all the rest of it inside its 4 small words. He was a brave soul. And then there is nothing more to write about it, because there is nothing more that words can do. You close the notebook. You wake the 2 men who are left. And the 3 of you rise and force your frozen boots onto your frozen feet and crawl out into a world that is 1 friend emptier than it was the night before. The depot is 11 miles north. You settle the harness onto your shoulders, and you go on. You do not make it very far. A few miles, perhaps, before the cold turns its full attention to you, the way it turned on Evans, the way it turned on Oates. You have been spending your body like loose change the whole way home, and now the account is very nearly empty, and the cold knows it. It is the 18th of March, by your reckoning, when you finally let yourself look. Your right foot. The one you would not think about too directly, all those long miles, the one that had gone past pain into a thick waxy numbness, that felt like it belonged to someone else and had been left behind somewhere down the trail. You look at it now because there is no longer any reason not to, and you write down what you see plainly in your own hand, because that is the one thing you have never stopped doing. My right foot has gone, you write. Nearly all the toes. There. It is on the page now, the truth of it, and somehow putting it into words makes it bearable in a way that looking at it is not. You were rather proud of your feet once. You had, by your own private estimate, the best feet in the party. The cold has a way of making such pride seem very far away. You make camp. The 3 of you. You and Wilson on your left, and Bowers on your right, the way it has been for so long now that you do not need to look to know them. Bill Wilson, the steadiest soul you have ever met, the truest friend you have. Bertie Bowers, who has never once, in all your hearing, admitted to being cold. You pitch the little green tent, the wind-proof cloth that has been your only roof at the bottom of the world, and you crawl inside, the 3 of you, out of the killing wind. And then the gale comes down, and it does not lift. It begins around the 20th, the 21st, a continuous blizzard out of the south, and it pins you where you lie. You have been ready to start for days. Your gear is packed. Your harnesses are laid out. You and your 2 companions have done everything a man can do, except the one thing the weather will not permit, which is to walk out the door. You lie there with the drift roaring against the canvas a few inches from your face, waiting for it to thin enough to let you out. It does not thin. And the depot is 11 miles north. 11. You turn the number over in the dark, the way you'd turn a stone in your pocket. 1 ton depot, the great cache of food and fuel you laid yourself a year ago, the lifeline of the whole homeward journey. You laid it where you did because the ponies were dying and you would not drive them into the ground, and so it sits a little further north than it might have. And now there is a gap between you and it that the storm will not let you close. There is no blame in the thought. It is only the plain fact of where things are. 11 miles of flat white barrier, no glacier to climb, no mountains, nothing but level snow between you and everything you need to live. I'm glad. On a good day, in another life, it was a morning's walk. You are not going to walk it. You understand that now, lying in the tent with the gale screaming, and the fuel gone, and the food very nearly so. The little Primus that gave you your 1 hot meal a day is silent. There is no oil left to light it. The last of the food is a few days' short ration, and the storm shows no sign of breaking, and the 3 of you are too weak now to have made the distance, even if it did. You have come 800 miles back from the bottom of the world, and you are going to stop 11 short. That is simply how it is. So you do the thing you have always done. You write. You hold the pencil in fingers that are clumsy and slow, and you tell the truth about what is happening, plainly, because it is the one thing out here you can still control. You cannot control the wind. You cannot control the 11 miles, but you can put the graphite to the page. You write about the storm, how it goes on, and will not let you out. You write about the 2 men beside you, how unendingly cheerful they are, how Wilson and Bowers speak of getting through, even when none of you truly believes it anymore, how they meet the end, with a courage that breaks your heart to witness. And you write, again and again, the way you always come back to it in the end, about the people at home. You write to them, to the wives, the mothers, the people who will want to know that their men were brave. To Kathleen, your fierce, clever Kathleen, and to the small boy named Peter, who will grow up barely remembering your face. You tell them you are not afraid. You tell them, more or less, that it was worth the doing. And here is the strange part. The part you would not have believed a year ago. The cold has stopped feeling like an enemy. For weeks it was a thing to be fought, hour by brutal hour, the deepest cold on earth, pressing in on every side. But somewhere in these last still days, lying quiet in the bag, the fight has gone out of it. There is a warmth creeping up through you now, slow and almost kind, a loosening, a heaviness in the limbs like the first sweet minute of sinking into a deep feather bed after a very long journey. This is the body's last mercy, though you do not name it so. When there is nothing left to fight with, the cold stops being pain and becomes something gentler. Your eyes want to close. The grinding of the wind seems farther away than it was. It would be so easy, so unbelievably easy, to set the pencil down and let yourself be carried off on that warmth towards something that feels, more than anything else, like sleep. But you have a few more words to give first. It is the 29th of March, 1912. You do not know. It is the last time you will lift the pencil, but some part of you understands that the words are nearly done, the way you understand that the warmth is nearly all the way up. You bring the point to the page, and you write slowly, each letter a small labor, and you tell the simple truth one final time. We shall stick it out to the end, you write, but we are getting weaker, of course, and the end cannot be far. You pause. The wind leans on the canvas. Wilson and Bowers are very quiet beside you. It seems a pity, you write, but I do not think I can write more. And then, because a man signs his name to the truth, you add it. R. Scott. There. That is the last of the diary, the notebook you carried the whole impossible way, the one thing you kept like a prayer, because it was the one thing the white could not take from you. But there is one more line in you, not for the record, not for posterity, for them, the people at home, the ones you have come back to on every page, the ones who were the whole reason for the walking. You gather the very last of your strength, and you write it underneath, and it is the truest thing you have ever set down. For God's sake, look after our people. And now the pencil is heavy in your hand. So heavy. The warmth has come all the way up at last, soft and complete, and the wind is very far away, and Wilson is on your left, and Bowers is on your right, and you are not alone. You were never going to be alone. You let the graphite rest against the page. You begin perhaps to form one more word, out of old habit, out of love. The point catches on the rough paper. Your hand moves slower. And then it simply stops. Not with a struggle, not with terror. The way a child's hand goes slack at the end of a long day, the book still open, the lamp still warm. The pencil comes to rest. The word is never finished, and it does not matter that it is never finished, because everything that needed saying has been said. The warmth folds over you like a blanket, pulled up to the chin by someone who loves you. Your breathing slows and evens and softens, the breath of a man conserving nothing now, a man finally allowed to rest. The tent is very quiet. 3 men lie still in the green half-light, side by side, the way they have lain for months, and the gale sings them down, and the cold that was once an enemy holds them now, the way the warm dark holds a sleeping house. You took risks you had written days before in a letter meant for everyone. You knew you took them. Things have come out against you, and therefore you have no cause for complaint. No complaint. Only the long, kind warmth and the 2 friends beside you, and the snow falling soft and endless over the little tent, 11 miles from everything you needed, and, somehow, at the very last, that being enough. The storm blows on, and over the tent, gently, the snow begins to gather and to cover and to keep. For 8 months, the white keeps its secret. The blizzard that pinned you blows itself out, in time, the way all storms do, and the long polar winter comes down over the barrier. 4 months of black and frozen silence, and the little green tent sits alone in all that emptiness, with the snow drifting higher around it. The world does not know. Far away, in warm, bright rooms, Kathleen does not know. England does not know. The notebook lies in the dark beside your hand, the words in it waiting, patient as the ice. And then, on the 12th of November, 1912, the spring returns, and a search party comes south across the barrier, looking for you. They find the tip of the tent first, a small dark peak of canvas above the snow that has all but buried it. They dig down to it, and they open it, and they go very quiet. 3 men at rest in their sleeping bags. You in the middle between your 2 friends, Wilson on one side and Bowers on the other, just as you lay down. They look, the men who find you, like sleepers more than anything else, like 3 souls who simply did not wake. And beside you, where your hand had let it fall, the notebook, the letters, the record, kept faithfully to the very end, every hard truth set down in a steady hand that did not flinch. And then they find the other thing, and it stops their breath in their throats. The rocks. 30 pounds and more of stone, dragged on the sledge the whole long, murderous way back from the foot of the glacier. Geological samples. Fossils, pressed into the rock, the delicate fern shapes of a plant called Glossopteris, leaves that grew green and broad in warm air, ages and ages ago, when this frozen place was not frozen at all, but a living forest under a kind sun. 3 dying men, jettisoning everything they could to lighten the load, starving, freezing, 11 miles from salvation, and they would not let go of the rocks. Because the rocks were the science. The rocks were the true reason, the honest work, the soul of the thing underneath the race. You hauled the proof of an ancient green world across the ice, with the last strength in your bodies, and you died still holding it, and that, perhaps, tells the whole of who you were more plainly than any flag ever could. They cannot carry you home. There is no way to do it, and no need. You are already where you will stay. So they collapse the tent over you, gently, the green cloth, your last roof, and they raise above you a great cairn of snow, and on top of it they set a cross, made from a pair of skis, lashed together, pointing at the sky. They read the burial service over the 3 of you, out there in the wind, and then they turn north, and leave you to the silence you gave your life to. And later, when the news has gone home, and a grieving nation needs somewhere to put its sorrow, they build another cross, a wooden one, up on the saddle of Observation Hill, where it looks out over the barrier toward the place you lie. And into it they carve your names, and the names of the men who died with you, and 1 line more, chosen from a poem, the final words of Tennyson's Ulysses, because no other words would do. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. But the diary comes home. It is carried back across the world, the small worn notebook with the frozen pages, and it is opened, and it is read. And here is the thing the cold could never have guessed. The turn that makes the whole sorrowful story end not in darkness, but in something like light. The words you wrote in that tent, the truth you set down with a dying hand, because it was the one thing you could still do. Those words go out into the world, and they do not stop. A nation weeps over them. They are printed, and read aloud, and read again, by firesides and at bedsides, for a year, and then 10 years, and then 100. The race you lost is forgotten by almost everyone. But the way you wrote it down, plainly, bravely, thinking of others, to the very last line, that is remembered, that endures. The failure becomes, by some strange alchemy of grace and honesty, the most enduring thing you ever did. Your own quiet voice, carried up out of the snow and into a still room 100 years later, on a night much like this one, still keeping company with the awake and the weary in the dark. And perhaps that is the strange mercy of it, that a man who lost the race and lost his life is remembered not for the pole he didn't win, but for the way he kept writing, for the people he kept thinking of, right down to the last word the pencil ever made. So let him rest now. Let them all rest, the three friends in the little tent, side by side under the snow that came at last, not as an enemy, but as a blanket, soft and white and endless, drawn up over them by the kind dark of the world. The wind has gone quiet. The cold has turned to warmth. There is nothing left to strive for, and nothing left to fear. Only the long, deep sleep of men who gave everything and have finally been allowed to lay it down. The lamp is low. The snow is falling, soft against the glass. And somewhere, 100 years away, a worn pencil rests on an open page. The last word unfinished, and it does not matter that it is unfinished. It only looks like sleep. It always, in the end, looked like sleep. Since you made it this far, I'm glad you enjoyed the episode. If you would like to continue listening to episodes with similar themes, I linked them in the description below. You will also find a playlist of our most popular videos. Sleep now, nightlings. And wake up, as always, a little stronger and a little wiser. The story is done, but yours continues.